May the Noble Triple Gem bless you all. As usual, once again we have met with today's Dhamma discussion. So before we start today's sermon, let us pay our homage to the Perfect One by chanting the Namaskara 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. After a month, we meet again. And in the last month, we talked about the importance of the Vesak full moon Poi day, if you can remember. And we also revised what we have learned so far. The practical applications of what you give is what you get. I sincerely hope that you have tried to practice this in your day-to-day life so as to make your lives a very peaceful place to live in. So, dear children, are you practicing this actually in your life? If you're honestly practicing this, your life will be very different from the others who don't. Because, dear children, this is something that is not very common. This is the Dhamma. In Lord Buddha's word, in his own words, he says he considers this Dhamma as his own teacher. So, this is the teacher of the Lord Buddha that we are talking about. So, dear children, today we try to take a new step in our journey in searching for the truth. Isn't it the quest of us all to seek the truth? So, we are all truth seekers. Because, dear children, we don't like to be deceived. We have a right to know the truth. So, we make use of that right and we seek for the truth. Therefore, I invite you all to look into your lives and search for the truth. There can only be one truth. There can't be several truths. So, you can find out for yourself what is the truth by doing many experiments. So, in today's discussion, we are going to apply this. So, we are going to find the truth. We are going to take the very first step in finding the truth. Before that, we'll have to have a very pleasant mindset. That is why we started off by practicing the theory that we talked, going in front of the mirror. So your mind will never be a victim of unpleasance. So if your mindset is pleasant only, then you can gain the benefits of this Dhamma. Then only you can gain this. Because otherwise, this Dhamma will not be fathomable, or it is not receptive to an unpleasant mind. That is why, my dear children, that I insist you to practice this. The theory of what you give is what you get. Therefore, your mind will always be filled with pleasance. You will always be grateful to whoever that you might come across. And you will be grateful even for the peoples that you couldn't be grateful before. To such a mind, to such a pleasant mind only, this Dhamma will be receptive. Okay. Today we are going to talk about the happiness. Isn't it something that we all look forward to? If I ask you for one thing that you do in your life, what do you seek for? What is your ambition in your life? So if I asked you, there might be different answers. Some of you might say that I would like to be a teacher. Some of you might say that I would like to be an engineer. Some of you might say that I would like to be a doctor. So on and so forth. In doing so, reaching your life's ambition, what is your purpose? That is one thing, isn't it? Whoever that you become at the end, you do it to be happy. So, if I were to ask you, what is the first thing that you look forward to in doing any kind of thing? So, you must check whether that task that you're going to do would make you happy. If it doesn't make you happy, may not be on the very moment that you do it, but it should reap the result of happiness even at the end. So if you're so sure that the task that you are going to do will make you happy, then only you will take the very first step in doing so. So isn't it a worthwhile effort to look into this happiness in order to increase that? So if our life's goal is to become happy, so that is a very worthwhile effort. Because the purpose of our life's endeavor is to gain this status of happiness. Okay. So let us now discuss how to be happy. So if I were to ask you, what do you do to be happy? There might be different answers. For example, some might say that I would like to read books. Some of you might say that I'd like to watch a movie or a TV series. Then some of you might say, I'd like to hang out with my friends. I'd like to be with my parents. I would like to be with the company of whom I love. So there will be different answers. In each of those occasions, there was a crucial thing, or there was an essential thing that needed to be for you to be happy. There was something that you liked, isn't it? For example, if you are happy when you eat the favorite food item that you like the most, that means there was your liking to that food item. So your interest was there. So in all those examples that we discussed, your liking, or we call that as attachment. So you should like. That is how you achieve the status of happiness. So dear children, let us discuss about this more and more. And let us find out how can we improve this happiness. Okay, let us take an example. So a situation, a case scenario. Just imagine that you have a very throbbing headache, very severe headache. What would you do? You would go to your mom and you will say that, I have a throbbing headache, please help me. It's aching so much. I can't bear the pain. So, what might your mother say? So she will hug you and she'll try to give some medicine. So she might give you some painkiller, let's say just a paracetamol. Then when you take that painkiller, what would happen? Obviously your pain, the headache, will subside. Why? That is the effect of that painkiller. It would kill the pain, isn't it? So, after you experience the disappearance of this headache, what is your experience? Do you like it or not? Obviously you will like that experience, because the headache was actually a very unpleasant experience. So you didn't like that. Therefore, the absence of it makes you to be happy. Or else, we can say another word for that. That is pleasure. So you experience this pleasure with the disappearance of this headache. So if you were to carefully analyze this situation, if I were to ask you this question, how would you answer this? Okay, so let me ask it. Where did this pleasure come from? Or from where? From what it came from? For example, you might see pleasurable things in the world that you live in the school, at your home, then among your friends and family and other social gatherings. You might see pleasurable things. When you go to a party, you will see many pleasurable things, especially food items and beverages. Why do you call them pleasurable? Because you know for a fact that pleasure do come from them. That is why you call them pleasurable, isn't it? Not only they come from the things that you eat, but also they come from even the sound. Right? So if you are a fan of music, you might say that I enjoy that music a lot. What does it mean? In other words, if you were to rephrase that, you said pleasure came from that piece of music. Wasn't it the idea that you wanted to convey? So you know for a fact that pleasure do exist in this world, and our quest is to find out and get the maximum amount of pleasure from this world. Dear children, we are going to analyze how pleasure works, and that is our quest. Because if you want to be happy, then you might also investigate how to be more happy. So if you are using pleasure to be happy, so in order to be more happy, we have to investigate how pleasure occurs, isn't it? So this is why we are going to study and analyze about this concept called pleasure. It's going to be very simple. No hard teachings or technical things are going to be discussed in our future discussions, because we are going to apply these principles and concepts in our day-to-day life experiences. Therefore, you will be able to identify them in your personal life. That is how we practice this. So it becomes so live, and we have our experiences, and we go to the lab of life as we call it. Therefore, dear children, try to apply these principles and concepts in your day-to-day life experience. That is the crucial thing. That is the most important thing. Otherwise, you will not convince these things. When they do happen in your life, you can correlate easily with the concepts. Then you realize a little bit more. You won't be the same person before that contemplation, before that thinking. So each time that you apply these concepts in your daily life, you won't be the same person. Little by little, from moment to moment, you're going to change. And your attitudes will change. And the way that you see the world will change. Ultimately, you will be developed. And you will never be able to imagine what far that you have come from where you started. So that is the path that we are all in, and we all travel towards our own liberation. So, dear children, let us all take a moment to think upon this idea of pleasure. So, as we have discussed in our discussion, that pleasurable things appear in the outside world. Let's try and check whether this is true. So we are going to take the scientific approach. So many of you might be familiar with this approach because you're learning science in school. So we are going to test this, and we are going to conduct experiments. And we observe things, and depending on those observations, we come into conclusions. So that is the scientific approach. So dear children, let us say that pleasure actually existed in the outside world. Let's take an example. So, I imagine every one of you like to eat ice cream, don't you? I hope not. So, ice cream is a pleasurable item of food. So, most of you might be enjoying it. Okay, now we are going to check, now we are going to test whether pleasure actually exists in the ice cream. Or in other words, we are going to test whether that pleasure comes from the ice cream, whether that the pleasure is embedded in the ice cream. Okay, for this experiment, you need a tub of ice cream. Oh, no. You don't actually need it. All these experiments that we are trying to do here are mental experiments. So what do you need for that? Just your mind. Your mind is enough. Because you have had these experiences in your past, you can take out those experiences and check it for yourself. This is what we call the lab of life. So you all have the past experiences. So those are the things that we are going to use here. Okay, so can you remember the last time that you enjoyed the ice cream? Try to recall that moment and what happened at that moment. So you experienced a huge amount of pleasure. Maybe huge, maybe small, whichever. But there was some amount of pleasure that you experienced. So we are going to check whether it actually came from the ice cream. So when they make ice cream, they do mix it, right? So they can't make ice cream without mixing, right? So if they add this component of pleasure to the ice cream, so the pleasure should have been distributed equally throughout the ice cream, isn't it? So if pleasure actually existed in the ice cream, it should have distributed throughout the ice cream with an even concentration. Isn't it? So that is understood. I hope you understood that. Okay, so if that is so, whatever the part that you are going to test the ice cream, the pleasure you should experience the same amount of pleasure, or else you should experience the same concentration of pleasure, because it doesn't depend on where you try to take the sample from. Because if you're going to taste the same ice cream, wherever that you're going to take the sample from, you should experience the same concentration of pleasure, because it is evenly distributed. Okay, let's test this. Okay, when you eat the ice cream, what about the first mouthful that you taste? Isn't it the most delicious part of that ice cream? So you experience a huge gush of pleasure. The first mouthful. And later on, what happens? Just imagine that you are being forced to eat the ice cream. And you have about 4 liters of ice cream. And you are forced to eat the ice cream. The complete 4 liters. You will enjoy the first mouthful. Then what happens to the next? You will keep on enjoying about half a liter or so. There onwards, what will happen? Little by little, something very strange happens to this pleasure. It almost fades. And with time, it won't be pleasurable at all. You'll feel like giving up the whole idea of eating this ice cream. It won't be pleasurable. So dear children, what happened to the pleasure? We all agreed that before, that pleasure came from the ice cream, right? If it came from the ice cream, it should have been distributed evenly throughout the ice cream, right? So the subject that the study subject, or the ice cream that we used, it's the same ice cream. Throughout the 4 liters, it was the same ice cream. So we didn't change it. But what happened to the pleasure? It changed, isn't it? So this proves something. So if pleasure came from the ice cream, it cannot change over time. Because with time, the ice cream is not going to change. But it actually changed. So that means something, right? So pleasure cannot come from the outside. If it came from the outside, the observation should be different to what we experience, what we have observed practically. And also, dear children, there is another test that you can do. So if actually pleasure came from the ice cream, so ice cream should be pleasurable to all people in this world. Does that happen really? Look into your lives. Maybe many people like ice cream, but take other examples. So let's take chocolate. Do you know there are people who kind of hate chocolate? They don't like chocolate at all. If pleasure came from the chocolate, it should be pleasurable to all of them, including the people who don't like chocolate. I mean, liking chocolate or not liking chocolate, that is a separate matter, isn't it? Connection with pleasure, it is not, you cannot explain that. If pleasure is there in the chocolate, it should come from the chocolate, whether you liked it or not. Liking the chocolate is immaterial for that. Therefore, dear children, with these kinds of examples, with these kinds of tests that you can do with your life experiences, it is very clearly seen that pleasure does not come from the outside world. This is very easy to apply to the food items that you eat. And not only for food items, it can be applied to all the things that you do in your life. It could be pictures that you see, or the sight, or the sound, for music, for songs that you enjoy. So for example, you might call a song as very, very soothing or very musical. And you might recommend that song to someone else. Just listen to this song. It's so beautiful. It's so tranquilizing. It's so beautiful. You might have already said these things. You might have recommended these piece of music to your friends. But do they all like that as you do? I hope not. Because the pleasure that each and every individual that they experience, that is dependent on something else. So it proves something, isn't it? It proves that pleasure did not come from that song or that piece of music. So we discussed about three experiments that we might be able to do at home, alone. But are the things that you need to conduct these investigations, these tests? Just your mind and your memories. Very easy to do. You can do at with your family members, with your friends and everyone. You just need your mind and your memories. So, dear children, we talked about being happy. So after discussing about revising about what you give is what you get, how to be pleasant, how to maintain that pleasant environment in your mindset. So we took the very first step towards researching about the truth. So we talked about happiness and we introduced the term pleasure. So pleasure is the type of happiness that we all look forward in this life. And we talked about where does this pleasure come from? So what is the location of this pleasure? Where is it embedded? And we did about 3 experiments. And we found out, and we got into a conclusion that if pleasure came from the outside world, these observations cannot happen. Therefore, we concluded that pleasure must not come from the outside world. Or in other words, pleasure does not exist in the outside world. So, that brings us to the end of today's discussion. I sincerely hope, dear children, that you take something out of these discussions and you apply them in your practical lives and make use of it. So, with the application of this truth that today we discussed and the things that we are going to discuss in the future sermons as well, your life will change for the good. Okay. So, with the merits that we have acquired today, let us all take a moment to spread these merits and the blessings of these merits to all living beings. May through the power of these merits, if any of our ancestors have been born in the woeful plains, may they redeem themselves from the woeful plains and be born in the blissful plains. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds. May they fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sirisat Namaskara. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Therwan Sarna, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the half-sister of Lord Buddha, Nanda. She had many names: Rupananda, Sundarinanda, and Janapada Kalyani. This story tells us family matters. The blood is thicker than water. Family is your responsibility. 100,000 long years ago, in the time of the Lord Buddha Padumuttara, she was born to a family of a millionaire. She was the only child of the family. Even though she was very rich, she was very humble. She lived a very humble life. Her parents were Buddhists. They went to see Lord Buddha Padumuttara and listen to sermons. One day, she went to the temple, and that was a very special day for her. After the sermon was concluded, Lord Buddha addressed the audience and bestowed the title of the foremost among nuns to practice meditation to one of the nuns. She was amazed by the sight. She made a firm resolve and made her her role model. And she went to Lord Buddha and invited Lord Buddha and the Mahasangha for alms for 7 days. On the 8th day, he went to Lord Buddha and asked, "Venerable Sir, I would like to be like the nun who was the foremost among nuns to practice meditation. I want to be like the nun, the foremost among nuns who practiced meditation. Will I be like her?" Then the Lord Buddha looked into the future with his divine eye and replied, "Dear child, in another 100,000 years, in the time of the Lord Buddha Gautama, you would be like her." She dedicated her life to accumulate more merits, and upon her death was born in heavenly plains. On her last birth, she was born in the time of the Lord Buddha Gautama. The king Suddhodana and Queen Mahamaya gave birth to a child called Prince Siddhartha. After 7 days, Queen Mahamaya passed away. And then the king Suddhodana remarried Queen Mahaprajapati Gautami. They had another child called Nanda, the half-sister of Prince Siddhartha. She was absolutely beautiful, so people called her Sundarinanda, which meant beautiful Nanda. As I said before, she was called by many names: Rupananda, Sundarinanda. It all meant beautiful Nanda. She was the most beautiful lady in the whole country. When she came of the age, King Suddhodana prepared her marriage. On the day they were going to have the wedding and the coronation ceremony together, to be the king and the queen of the country, the Lord Buddha and Mahasangha wanted to give them happiness that marriage cannot bring. So they visited the palace. The Lord Buddha gave his alms bowl to her fiancé, Prince Nanda, to carry it with him to the monastery. He wanted to give it to Lord Buddha, but he was reluctant. Out of love and respect he had towards Lord Buddha, he followed him. When they entered the palace gate, he saw Sundarinanda was looking at him from the top floor of the building and asking him to come soon. When he saw Sundarinanda, his heart skipped a beat. He wanted to run to her, but he was holding the alms bowl of Lord Buddha. Even though he wanted to run, he didn't do it out of love and respect he had towards Lord Buddha. When Lord Buddha and Prince Nanda entered the monastery, the Lord Buddha took the alms bowl back and he talked to Nanda. Dear Nanda, I let go of the chance to become the wheel-turning monarch, the person who had power to control the whole world. But you are just an ordinary king who's getting married today. Please don't do it, Nanda. Please ordain. Then, even though Prince Nanda wanted to reject it, he accepted it out of love and respect he had towards Lord Buddha. When Sundarinanda heard the news, she was devastated. Her whole world collapsed. He stayed in the palace, didn't come out. She stayed in the palace, staring at the ceiling, waiting for her Prince Charming to return. A few months later, King Suddhodana became an arahant and passed away. Her mother, Queen Prajapati Gautami, became a bhikkhuni. One day, her mother, Queen Prajapati, visited her. She asked, "You are the half-sister of Prince Siddhartha. You are a daughter of the Shakyan clan. Why are you staying in the palace alone? Please come and join us. This body is impermanent and causes illness. You can eradicate suffering at a very young age if you ordain." Sundarinanda listened to these words very carefully, but she didn't utter a single word. She knew her mother was correct, and she decided to ordain. She didn't ordain out of respect she had towards Lord Buddha, Dhamma and Mahasangha. She didn't ordain to eradicate suffering. She ordained just because of the love she had for her relatives, her mother, her cousins, relatives, and many Shakyan ladies ordained. She conformed to follow them. Even though she was ordained, wore robes, and had a bald head, mentally she wasn't. When she was supposed to do things a nun should do, she didn't do it. When she was supposed to meditate, she started to daydream. Her thoughts were on her lay life. He thought of the time she was missing. She thought of her handsome husband, the moments she could have spent with him as a married couple. She thought of her beauty and the status as Princess Nanda. She was reluctant to visit Lord Buddha. She didn't go to see him because she thought the Lord Buddha would tell her off. She thought Lord Buddha would say something repulsive to her beauty, her body. So she thought, I should not go and visit Lord Buddha because I shouldn't change my ways because of him. That's what she thought. When other nuns went to the monastery, she would stay back doing the daily chores. One day, she saw a group of people went to Jethavanarama Monastery carrying white flowers in white attire. She was entangled by the sight. So she wanted to go. When the other nuns went to the monastery and came back, they spoke of the great virtues of Lord Buddha, the greatness of Lord Buddha. She listened to those silently and made up her mind to visit Lord Buddha. But her pride was delaying her. The Lord Buddha would have left her. But the blood is always thicker than water. He had a responsibility for his lay family, the bond that connects with siblings. So, the Lord Buddha had the intention to help Sundarinanda, Venerable Sundarinanda. Therefore, one day, Lord Buddha invited all the nuns to come and visit the monastery. His intention was to help her. Because of that, reluctantly, she had to go to the monastery. When she entered there, Lord Buddha addressed her. The Lord Buddha started to praise her. Each and every word made her joyful, delighted her, inspired and motivated her. Because of that, she was ready to listen to his teachings. But Lord Buddha saw her pride was blocking her up. He performed a miracle with his supernatural powers, just as he did for Venerable Khema. A throne can be taken away by another throne. She was very attached to her body and beauty. Her pride and attachment should be taken away by beauty. So, using his supernatural powers, he conjured up a beautiful young girl about the age of 16, seated next to him, fanning him. This girl was only be seen by Venerable Nanda. This young girl was an idol of beauty. When Sundarinanda saw her, she started to compare with her. She started to compare herself with this girl. She thought, this young girl is a beautiful swan compared to me. I'm just an ugly duckling. She was watching her. She saw her growing old, got on to her 20s, and then to middle age, and then to old age. She started to realize that body is changing. Because of that, the attachment started to diminish. She was watching her further. This old lady became very old. Her skin started to wrinkle. Her veins started to pop up. Slowly, she became crippled and collapsed onto the floor. she started to contemplate on what she was seeing. The Lord Buddha started to preach Dhamma. She became Sotapanna, and then the Lord Buddha recited these stanzas. Attinang nagarang katam, mansa lohita lepana, evang characha machocha, mano makova ohito. Which meant the body, the city is made out of bones plastered with flesh and blood, stirred up with decay and death, pride and detraction. Venerable Sundarinanda started to contemplate further. She practiced and practiced and practiced. She practiced a lot, and then she attained arahantship. Sometime later, the Lord Buddha addressed the gathering and said, "Foremost among nuns who practiced meditation is my daughter, Venerable Nanda. This was a dream she had 100,000 years ago, and it became true. So, dear children, what do you think of the story? What do you think the family of Lord Buddha, the lay family of Lord Buddha, Venerable Sundarinanda's lay family, her mother, her father, her brother, her half-brother, her uncles, aunts, cousins, they all ordained, they attained the Four Noble Fruits. Don't you think the Lord Buddha saw it as a great responsibility? This story teaches us a great lesson. The blood is always thicker than water. Family is our responsibility. Your family is your responsibility. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're married or not, your children, whether you're old or young, it doesn't matter. You have the responsibility of your family. When I was young, my parents used to tell me, you should share what you have with your siblings. So whenever I get a bar of chocolate, clothes, books, whatever I get, I used to share it with my siblings. If that's the case, why not we share the ultimate happiness with them, the great Dhamma, the path to happiness? You are part of this family. You are born to this family because of a reason. Do you think it's a coincidence? Oh no, it's not an accident. You are placed in this family for a reason. The reason to give, share what you have received. If you haven't done the 5 heinous sins, you can become an arahant. So, you can give that bliss to your family. You can follow the path of the arahants walked on. You can follow their footsteps. You are the descendants of great arahants. Your blood is from the Shakya clan. So, you can achieve this. And you can help your family to do that. As I said, whether you're young or old, whether black or white, your age, your race doesn't matter. You all can achieve the great happiness that Lord Buddha has taught us. The blood of the great Arahants run through your veins. Let the great qualities run through your mind. You can achieve that. Strive hard. Be heedful. If Sundarinanda is your role model, prove her that you are a student of her. Make her proud. Practice the path. Help others. Sharing is caring. You can defeat death, fear and grief. They all have come out of it. The great Arahant has won that battle. So you can do the same. Let's strive hard. Let's be heedful to practice the path. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all.